female menstrual cycle and explained. So before I dive into today's video, I just want to emphasize the fact that this is great information to have even if you're not a female, and especially if you're planning on working with females, or if you're just planning on having if you're currently having a girlfriend, daughter, or planning on having one in the future, so you can understand them better. And the main things that I'm going to be going over is simply how we can think about this and apply different things to make training and dieting the easiest for us all and get the most out of it, taking the menstrual cycle into consideration. So before I dive in, I want to give a shout out to Lyle McDonald, because most of the information I'll be sharing is from his website or the Woman's Book, which is a 600-page deep dive on females and the female physiology implications. Most of it is backed by different kind of studies, so I'm not sure how many hours he put into that, but that is definitely the resource you guys want to dive into if you're looking for a further deep dive on this subject. And the third thing is simply going to be that these are general implications and the results from different studies, so it's more likely that this apply to you than not, but it doesn't necessarily have to, so we always have to experiment and see how we respond. So when we're looking at the female menstrual cycle, we have two different phases. So we have the luteal phase and we have the follicular phase. And the follicular phase starts when our period starts. So this is basically a full month showing off the female menstrual cycle. And the follicular phase is lasting 2 weeks, and then we have the luteal phase lasting 2 weeks. So this is basically PMS weeks where the hormones are taking over. The female body requires more energy. They usually experience mood swings. Bloating is very common. And during this week, I tend to ignore feedback when I'm working with females because it doesn't really say a lot. Because if their weight increased by 2 kilos, we don't know if that's actual fat gain or if just hormones and bloating, so their body could essentially be holding on to water. So usually don't take the feedback from that week too seriously, or I don't put too much effort, I don't put so much emphasis on it rather. So on the follicular phase, on the other hand, it's a way more enjoyable phase for the females, because this is typically where they can push the most amount of volume and intensity, and this is the ideal time to lose weight or push weight loss, whether that's in terms of reducing food or increasing cardio. So on the other hand, this time in the luteal phase is not the time to push volume or push fat loss. So what I like to do is that I like to schedule the deload in the luteal phase, because a deload is just a strategy where we're using a full week of training and we're reducing the amount of volume in that week to intentionally recover. And it's best to schedule it right here, because as like we've touched on, this is the best time to push volume and intensity, so this is not where we want to schedule our deload. So we want to have the deload right here instead. And in PMS week, we want to consider having a diet break, refeeds, or just getting out of a calorie deficit. And just like I said, this is the general application. So you could be a person that's still able to push in the PMS week. It might not bother you that much, so then you can go ahead. But for most females, we want to either have a refeed or we want to get out of a deficit into maintenance. Because if we try to push weight loss right here, what usually happens is that the cravings and hormones take over, so we actually end up doing more harm than good. So it's definitely something we want to avoid. And a very practical way to think about it is simply that in the red here, this is where we want to reduce volume. We likely want to increase calories. And in the follicular phase, the black right here, this is where we can push volume. This is where we can push our deficit. So that is a very practical way to think about it. And just a little side benefit, if you're a person that's really struggling with PMS or symptoms after your period. It has been shown that some people find taking a magnesium and omega-3 supplement very beneficial for that. So that's going to be all for today on the female menstrual cycle, and take care.